Welcome to Chiron Art Therapy. I'm Maggi Colwell, an art therapist and Jungian. Here we explore archetypal images, personal symbolism in art and dreams, and what your psyche is trying to tell you. If you're ready to dive into your inner world, you're in the right place. Subscribe, and let's begin. I'm Maggi Colwell with Chiron Art Therapy in Columbus, Ohio.
And I'm Dr. Robin Norris with Windward Optimal Health in Northern Virginia.
We've been having an ongoing conversation for a couple years, working together on our business and mindset work together. It's that idea of surround yourself with people that raise you up, motivate you, and inspire you. And we realized that it made sense to bring this conversation to other people as well.
There's been a synergy that we realized has been really helpful for us learning, and we thought maybe some other people might want to learn as well.
Today, we'll explore the role of financial planners and why it's essential to know when to refer clients to therapy. We'll discuss how money is one of the most taboo topics, even more so than sex and other sensitive subjects, and how this often comps financial planning. You'll also learn about the ways that childhood trauma and past experiences influence financial behaviors. And finally, we'll look at emotional reactivity, especially during stressful financial moments, and how this affects decision-making and money management. In the second part of the video, we'll dive into the importance of art therapy and exploring hidden financial emotions. Trauma affects how people react emotionally to money, and therapy can provide a safe space to uncover these deeply held feelings. Understanding when to refer clients to therapy is crucial for financial planners, especially when emotions and past experiences are affecting financial decision-making. By working together, therapists and financial planners can help clients achieve greater clarity and healthier financial behaviors. So in our last video, we talked about the difference between financial therapy and financial planning. So I thought it would be really helpful if we kind of broke it down into when a financial planner should have a local therapist to refer out to offer to their clients so that their clients have more resources to really succeed on their goal and kind of get into some of those more therapeutic aspects. We're almost kind of talking about the elephant in the room of the thing you can't talk about.
Yep.
And I've found that with my therapy clients, finances is the most taboo topic.
Absolutely.
More than sex, more than anything else.
I used to think it was the arguments about children, or like you said, it was going to be about sex. And then I kept digging. It was sometimes addictions in terms of, alcohol or drug misuse, but it ultimately still came down to money. And money was a driver in so many, many, many things. And it was the most shameful space to be able to talk about.
So when shame kind of takes over, we go into this instinctual kind of protective mode. And it's very difficult to talk when something gets triggered, when our emotions get high, especially when we're in the middle of an argument. It's, the thing that you can't talk about, you're going to bump into over and over again.
Right. And this is where I think you and I coming together has been a really neat blending, because I come from such a cognitive behavioral background and strength-based background and incredibly trauma informed. And what that means, though, is that I'm about the thinking and the feeling and the doing, but I don't always unlock things in the way that you can as an art therapist on this topic, because I do use more linear things like a notebook or a book or an audiobook. And it doesn't get down to our more childlike selves, where I think a lot of this stuff gets stuck and starts. So I don't know if you can talk more about that piece of it, but that is a huge, amazing thing between you and I, is how we approach working with people with financial therapy.
Absolutely. I feel like a lot of times our cognitive linear thinking brain can't go to those places, especially when it's traumatic. If your parents were arguing all the time about money, and that anytime somebody brings out a bank statement, you're freaking out, like because then you're that 5-year-old kid again, hiding in your room. It's not something that can be talked about. So I think those kind of pieces where somebody is moved kind of from their set point, their comfort level that they grew up with, and trying to deal with money, that's a good place to say, okay, how do I explore that? With the
Right.
therapy, when we're playing around with color and just exploring, like, what does this feeling when I get triggered around money feel like? That gives us a way to start to kind of tap into the emotional part of our brain and connecting it with the visual centers of the brain, because those two areas are very close together, to be able to actually have that part of our brain activated
Mm.
instead of taking over, so that then we can look at the piece of paper or the lump of clay that we've been messing around with both our cognitive brain online and being able to feel what's going on in our body,
Mhm.
and get to a place where we're regulated and can have a slow, safe, secure conversation about it. And I think those kind of things where, there's trauma involved, or just like emotional places that are not, they don't feel safe to go to, or they feel like sacred cows kind of a thing where you just can't question it, and you've like planted your flag and that's it. Like, I think those are the great places where some therapy can help in ways that financial planning just isn't designed to do.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's why I said I love the art therapy aspect, because so much of it is locked away through the art. It's finding the magic key to the magic keyhole, and you don't know. You don't have it automatically, but the client doesn't know, and they don't have it automatically. And so it's that self-discovery that they get to action on by working with an art therapist in order to be able to go, huh, that's something different I never thought of, or I never saw it that way, but I have a different feeling about it. And so there are so many things when we make decisions about money that involve our feelings and in our body.
Past family history for something that you feel emotional about or triggered about, or that it was just really difficult, that would be one reason to refer to a therapist. I specialize in traumatic grief, and I feel like that can be an incredible hurdle when somebody is surprised, when it changes their life situation tremendously. People who have been caretakers, who then have to figure out what their identity is afterwards.
Right?
Money seems secondary.
Mm.
Who am I and what am I doing and how am I going to like figure out what life is now? The money
Right.
seems trivial. And if you're in that kind of a like really overwhelming grief process, it's very hard to get your cognitive brain online to even be able to focus because you're exhausted.
But yet, the way we are in American society is that we request folks to make a lot of very fast, sometimes cumbersome money decisions very quickly. If there's changes of estates, if there's changes of things within the caregiving space, the price tag does not get smaller, and so that's where I think there's also a space that a financial planner has a limitation. And in order to be able to help this person through some of the grief at the beginning of a loss or a beginning of a change, can really set them up better in a long-term space to be able to make what a financial planner would consider a wise, helpful decision for the client's overall wealth and growth of their funds.
So, what would you imagine a financial planner would be seeing or be thinking, trying to make those kind of decisions to offer a therapeutic referral?
Sure. So an example for me would be somebody walking into the planner with a locked laptop saying, I know all the passwords are here somewhere, and the partner has passed. And now we're trying to get into that laptop. And then once we get into the laptop, if we get into the laptop, what are we even looking at? Because at the beginning of financial planning and the beginning of therapy, we automatically assume, rightly or wrongly so, that everybody kind of knows why they're coming. But that isn't always the case, because there can be surprises that happen along the way that sit in the room as well. And for a planner, it can be, wow, did you, as you're sitting behind this space, did you know that these 5 counts had this amount in it? Or these 3 accounts don't have anything left at all. And they may experience with their client at that very moment the shock of a win or the shock of a loss based on what is presenting in a file box or in a laptop, because there might have been some hidden secrets, or even not intentional hidden secrets, but there might have just been things that people did and just didn't get a chance to tell each other before something drastic happened or something drastic changed.
I want
So
to add in kind of like my psychoanalytic perspective on what you
please
do.
do.
Because that image of bringing in the locked laptop to go see your financial planner, that's a perfect example of an unconscious derivative of saying, here is the data that I do not have my own ability to access, to understand. It's hidden for me, and it hasn't been a part of my world until now.
Right.
And I probably don't even really want this.
Right. I may not want that responsibility.
Right. Because otherwise they would have already reviewed it and printed out some spreadsheets or something as talking for the planning meeting.
Or the person was never allowed to have the responsibility, in which case, again, you have your client sitting in the room starting to recognize all that they didn't know, because it was that other person's role. So role development and role change are now unfolding in the financial planner's office. And that too is another space to refer.
Yeah. And you mentioned shock, fear, relief. And sometimes there's feelings of inadequacy or shame too. And if you get into a place where any of those really complex emotions, like grief is not one emotion, it comes in and takes over, it's going to be very hard to sort through it and have a practical conversation.
Absolutely. One of the biggest indicators is, can your client get through 10 minutes without crying, where they have to keep stopping and they have to keep grabbing for a tissue, or they need to go use the restroom again. If your client is spending more time apologizing, they're not in a learning state to be able to have the planner make suggestions. And I think that's a big issue. Is part of the huge role of a planner is to make educated suggestions based on what they're seeing in front of them.
Or rejecting the advice of saying, well, I just don't know. Or I often hear it becomes higher pitched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how about this? I don't know. That's showing us that somebody is in a state of emotional reactivity. It may be a trauma response, and that they're in a freeze state. Brain can't process. It's not an intellectual issue.
Right.
It's an emotional overwhelm.
Absolutely. And then there's the other version a person might give a planner, which is, oh, sure, that sounds fine. And they leave with a homework assignment, and they never come back with a homework assignment, but they come back with a pile of reasons why they didn't complete it. And so again, progress can get stalled, progress can be stuck, because there is something more going on.
That they may not even be consciously aware that they're avoiding it. It's not like an active procrastination.
Right. They meant well. They really said, oh, that sounds like that sounds like a good homework assignment. Because in the moment they do believe it's a good homework assignment. And in the moment they hope that they're going to do it, but they walk out of the office and it's like it never existed until 5 minutes before the office again. And then they start to feel a little anxious, like, oh, well, yeah, didn't have a chance to do that. So
that means it's gone into a place of denial where it's like, if I don't look at this, then I don't have to worry about it.
Right. Right. Yep.
That's one of the things I really like about Barry Tesler's book, The Art of Money,
Mm-hmm.
because she is so focused on her body check-ins through the process of like incorporating kind of soothing aspects and sensory aspects into what she does so that you
Right.
can really get in touch with yourself and saying, oh, if my
Yeah.
anxiety is out of control right now, I'm not going to make a good decision. So what
Right.
can I do to help myself ground back down into grounded
Mhm.
decision making?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's a great resource for people. And if reading the book isn't enough support,
Mm-hmm.
that's a perfect example of somebody who doesn't need a book, they need a therapist.
Right. Or if you're struggling to get through the book, if
Mhm.
you're struggling to want to do the exercises where you sit down and because Barry's got some really wonderful exercises in her book, but if you find that you're starting them and you're very tearful or fearful as you're trying to complete them, yeah, it's time to maybe have another person in the space with you.
Because therapy gives containment so that you don't feel lost or out to sea with that
Hmm.
tearful and fearful piece. It
Right.
feels more like you're moving through it. And a therapist can help you get to a place where you're able to say, why is this happening? How do I manage these overwhelmed feelings? And
Right.
how do I get a new perspective on it so that I can kind of heal this pattern
Right.
rather than it being something that's kind of a albatross
Mhm.
following you
Mhm.
around and hanging around your neck all the time.
Right. And I think for some people, not only it's the feeling heard and the having the space to do that, but recognizing that they're probably not the only one that has experienced this the second they walk through your doors. Until that point, you feel very lonely, you feel very isolated, you feel very different, you feel like you've got the world's secrets on your shoulders. But once they get beyond that threshold, what you and I see is that they recognize, huh, okay, you might not have ever seen somebody like this. And then you and I are kind of like, well, yeah, similar, but different. Yes. And so it can help them feel very supported in the sense that this is part of the human experience. While it's individualized for each one of us, there's a lot to be said about us not being completely alone, even though we feel lonely. So, and money can feel very lonely. Money can do that. Money can buy us things and it can take away things and it can, put us in a room full of people. But as we stand there, we still may feel very alone.
Is
So
there anything else that a financial planner should know to refer?
I can't think of anything offhand right now. Like I said, for the planners, it's really that gut space of I don't know what to do next to help them move the needle with the numbers. I don't know how to help them complete the items that we have before us because there's just this invisible wall of emotion that's hanging between us.
I think we're not using the exact term, but I think some of that gut awareness in the counseling world, we'd call it countertransference, is what are you feeling by being in a space with somebody else? And if it's overwhelm or really high anxiety or a client that is exhausting you and you feel like, ugh, I can't do this, it's
Right.
because it's not the right tools for the job. If
Right.
you have a screwdriver and you need a hammer, or what's a better tool than a hammer? I don't.
I use the back of my shoe sometimes when the hammer's not available.
Okay.
But again, if you're needing a screwdriver, using the back of my shoe is not gonna work. So
Exactly. If you need a pair of needle nose pliers,
right.
the pipe wrench just isn't going to do it.
Exactly. Exactly. It can cause more damage than good.
So none of us are able to do everything for everybody. Um,
Right.
so if you feel overwhelmed and feel like this is something bigger than something you have training for, or you have the
Mhm.
capacity for, or something that's making you feel like exhausted or, just like, oh, I don't want to be here. Like,
Right.
that's time to say, hey, let's call in back.
Right. Right. And I would say the same works the reverse way. There's been plenty of times that I have suggested to a client or a couple or a family that I think you need to go talk to a wealth manager. You need to talk to a planner because their emotions may be aligned together, but I am not at all trained to be able to discover the different, avenues that they can talk about that in planning that can help them not only increase their wealth, but to maintain it across generations. I know a little about that, but that's not my swim lane at all. And so I think that both fields recognizing the importance of each other's roles is critical to being able to have somebody have overall health and wealth.
That was great. I feel like the more we talk about it, the
Yeah.
more everybody's able to be effective and feel supported and feel like we're, creating an overall team for our clients to succeed.
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to talk a little bit more in our next video about some more kind of the unconscious aspects and the archetypes of money and more about the emotional aspects of money in our next video. So take a look at the playlist and we will see you there.